鲁豫相约好莱坞影星詹妮弗·劳伦斯、克里斯·帕拉特和阿诺德·施瓦辛格，看他们回忆好莱坞往事。
When I got to Hollywood, once that door cracked open a little bit, the minute I felt that it cracked open, I knew my life had changed forever, and I knew that.
I wasn't seeking it. I was just watching street dancing in New York, and then somebody took a picture, and then, my parents were only going to give me the summer to basically prove that I couldn't do it, and then come back to Kentucky, and then I got a sitcom. And
within 6 months period, I was offered like 10 great action movies. I want to go and be a leading man. I want to be the highest paid actor.
倾听他们为角色付出的努力。
It's just a job. I feel like if I was an accountant and my boss was like, gain 20 pounds, I'd be like, well, no, it's unhealthy.
I'm gonna embrace this. I'm gonna lean into this fat dude, because the fatter I get, the funnier I seem to get. Like in 6 months, I'm gonna see if I can gain 50 pounds. And
if I have to lose 50 pounds, I could lose 50 pounds for a movie. The great thing is when there's a specific purpose, then you can really lock into that and you can do anything.
鲁豫有约，精彩马上开始。终结者系列电影中的阿诺德·施瓦辛格， X 战警中的模型女詹妮弗·劳伦斯和银河护卫队中的星爵克里斯·帕拉特，他们都是好莱坞科幻影史上的标志性人物。詹妮弗·劳伦斯自16岁进入演艺圈后，从未接受过表演培训的她，凭借天然不加雕饰的演出一鸣惊人，23岁便获得奥斯卡最佳女主角奖。而克里斯·帕拉特在凭借星爵彼得·奎尔和《侏罗纪世界》中的男主欧文等角色被大众熟知前，他曾尝试过除草工、服务员和推销员等各种工作，直到好莱坞为他打开了新世界的大门。
I hear that both of you knew that you were going to be famous in the future when you were quite young, right?
well, it's probably one of those things where hindsight is 20/20, and in looking back at my life, there were moments where I had a strong confidence and a belief in myself. Probably seemed time a little crazy to people, but in hindsight, yeah, I think I had a sense of what my destiny was.
And when did you know that you were going to be famous and you would be doing what you're doing?
I mean, acting wasn't ever really an option. I grew up in Kentucky, which is very far away from movies, or, I grew up on a farm basically. So being an actress or being famous wasn't really in the realm of possibilities. It's also a tricky thing to talk about because it's not likable. It's not a very likable thing to say.
I'd like to change my answer.
Okay. No. I don't mean that. I'm saying honest, because I've said it before too. I've said I've always known and I've always had this feeling, and it's honest and it's true, but it's not very relatable. It's a very strange thing to say, and I think mine manifested in more of I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought that I was going to do something working with young girls.
At the age of 19, you knew that you were going to be an actor no matter what, right?
Not quite then. It was before then that I knew I would be an actor. At the age of 19, I assumed I was going to be a comic. I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was writing a lot of jokes, and I was working on an act, but there was no necessity in my life, you know what I mean? I felt as though there was no deadline. I hadn't given myself a chunk of time to get this done by. I was just chilling, and I happened to get scooped up and brought to Hollywood. I was discovered, and so
at the restaurant.
At a restaurant, yeah. And when I got to Hollywood, once that door cracked open a little bit, the minute I felt that it cracked open, I knew my life had changed forever, and I knew that I was going to be able to. I knew that I had opportunities now, and that I wasn't going to waste them or squander them. I knew that I would make something out of them.
Jen, you have always been very lucky in terms of being an actress, right? You've always had lots of really good chances, opportunities.
I have. I mean, my story is really kind of annoying. I wasn't seeking it. I was just watching street dancing in New York, and then somebody took a picture, and then, my parents were only going to give me the summer to basically prove that I couldn't do it, and then come back to Kentucky, and then I got a sitcom, and then I immediately started working with really amazing directors. My first movie was with Lori Petty and then Guillermo Arriaga and then Deborah Granick and Winter's Bone. So I learned a lot. I was even lucky just in terms of who I was learning from.
What did you look like when you were discovered on the streets in New York?
I had curly blonde hair.
Okay.
I don't think I had grown into like my face or my boobs yet.
But did you consider yourself to be pretty at that time?
Kind of. I mean, I had 2 older brothers that were always really hard on me, which I'm grateful for. At school, I felt like I was pretty. People were saying it, but then at home, my brothers were telling me that no matter what anybody said, I was always going to be ugly. So I wasn't sure. And then, you know.
They were right. They're right. Never forget them.
So you were not quite sure.
I remember asking my mom when I was like 13, I think. I asked my mom, I was like, am I pretty? And she just goes, why? And I was like, well, am I? And she was like, doesn't matter. And she wouldn't answer. So it just was never really important. I wanted to be funny. I remember trying really, really hard to be funny. I was like, the day that I make my brothers laugh, I've made it.
That was it, yeah, me too.
You remember that?
I remember, funny. My dad used to...
Still to this day, I'm like that. I'm like thinking about Christmas. I'm like, oh, what can I say to really get them?
My dad was really funny, and he had this old saying, which was like sort of his brash sense of humor. He said, good looks are only skin deep, but ugliness goes right to the bone.
I love it, even though it's so not PC.
It's so not PC or right, but it's just like exactly his sense of humor.
So looks matter to you?
In my business, they do. Yeah, I think I've learned that more and more. Like there was a period in my mid-20s and early 30s as an actor where I was a little rebellious about it, and I thought what was more important was just the rhythm of my soul and my spirit and who I am as a guy and as a person.
Yeah.
You know, my comedy, my being real was more important. And I guess there's something to that, but I learned after that there is a very important element if you're trying to make it as an actor and be successful in movies that's based on looks, and it's reality. It's not necessarily sending the right message to kids or any of that, but I'm not really concerned with that. I'm concerned about trying to find success, and so I found that like I had to really do everything I could to look as good as possible.
I hear that you weren't feeling so well in the year of 2013, I think. You say mentally and physically you felt kind of sluggish.
Yeah. I determined that I was going to gain a lot. I was like motivated by actors like Tom Hanks and these guys who would just totally change their physicality for a role, and I saw it as a challenge. And I was doing Parks and Rec. In the first season of Parks and Rec, I wasn't necessarily heavy, and I'd started my first few, maybe 5 or 6, maybe it might have even been 10 years that I was in Hollywood, that I felt like I was in good shape. I was going out for roles that were, I was in good shape. I wasn't getting the well-written roles. I wasn't auditioning for well-written roles. But then I got on Parks and Rec where I could be funny, and I noticed in the second season when I noticed I was a little fat. And then I realized the character was maybe twice as funny as the first season, fat like that. And I thought, I'm gonna embrace this. I'm gonna lean into this fat dude, because the fatter I get, the funnier I seem to get. Sort of slingshot between the weights of maybe 220 and 300 pounds based on the roles that I was getting. And I loved the physical challenge of it. I liked looking at it and having a goal, like in 6 months I'm going to see if I can gain 50 pounds. And I did that a couple of times, and it was really bad for my body. I felt terrible. I felt just awful.
No. A little bit depressed at that time?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, physically, spiritually, mentally. I had no stamina. I was sleeping poorly. I think there's a strong connection between sound mind, sound body. And when you get your vehicle in good shape, it makes your brain work better, your heart work better, and your spirit just has this a more healthy vehicle to move through. So yeah, I was feeling it. I felt depressed.
If you do a role and has to have you put on like 20, 30, 40 pounds, will you do that?
No, I would. I mean, I'm a woman, so it's just different. I mean, I don't think I would ever be able to get it off. If I put it on, I don't have the discipline. It's just a job. I feel like if I was an accountant and my boss was like, gain 20 pounds, I'd be like, well, no, it's unhealthy. You know, it's just work. But I mean, I also feel the same way about losing weight. I mean, I couldn't do the best. You know, I'm going to play a role that I need to be in different shape for. So I'm doing the best that I can, but I'm also, I understand the limits of my body type. There's a certain shape that I'm just not going to be able to achieve because I don't have that body type. You know, the only way to achieve it would be to completely starve, and I wouldn't do that. So I work within the limits of, you know, my body type.
What do you think is the ultimate success of any actor or actress? The ultimate success?
The ultimate success?
Yeah.
I mean, probably staying married to the same person forever. I mean, that's like really rare in our business. I mean, having like a normal personal life would probably be, I mean, that would be the ultimate success for me.
You know, I didn't have the foggiest idea, nor did he, that this will become the most historic movie line, period. Within 6 months, period, I was offered like 10 great action movies. I want to go and be a leading man. I want to be the highest paid actor.
鲁豫有约，精彩稍后继续。同为好莱坞影星的阿诺德·施瓦辛格，不仅是詹妮弗·劳伦斯和克里斯·帕拉特的好莱坞前辈，同时还是星爵克里斯·帕拉特的终结者岳父。
I'll be back.
3 years ago, actually, yeah, I interviewed Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence here in Beijing, and then I'm very happy to hear about the marriage between your daughter
Chris Pratt is a fantastic guy.
Someday, come on.
I mean, he really is great. He's a sweetheart of a guy. He has been very good with Catherine, with my daughter, and he's a very dedicated actor. He takes his profession very seriously. He's right now shooting in Atlanta, and my daughter is there with him. So he's really great. We were very fortunate to have him come into our family.
I can't get over the fact that it's been 35 years since the first Terminator movie. Time does fly.
Yeah, and it was a very important kind of film for me because I was still somewhat on the beginning of my career.
You were already quite popular back then, actually.
Yeah, I've done Conan the Barbarian, and I've done the Jane Mansfield story, I've done Streets of San Francisco, and Stay Hungry, and I won the Golden Globe before then for Best Acting Debut and all those kind of things. But I still was in the beginning, I still needed a vehicle to break through. And Terminator was this vehicle.
Did you know that was going to be the vehicle at that time?
No. Terminator was a very low-budget, cheap movie. It was $6.5 million.
Even by the standard back then?
Back then, exactly, very cheap. As a matter of fact, we did a lot of shots, a lot of takes illegally. You know, we would go and we needed a shot of me breaking into a car. So we would just drive up on Hollywood Boulevard and we would see a car across the street. They say, let's go and break into this car. So I would walk across the street and they would film me walking across the street like the Terminator, like a machine, not paying any attention to the traffic. And then they would go up to the car, they would look around and then just boom, you know, break through the window. And I had a leather gloves on, so I was protected. And then just, you know, went inside and then cut. So that was the scene, and then the rest of it we shot inside the studio.
Insane at the same time.
No permission, no permits. We needed the permits. We didn't have the money. It was only $6.5 million, and no one had any idea that this would be such a huge hit. and that it would be amongst the Time magazine's top 10 movies of the year.
Yeah.
And the intellectual kind of critics that normally don't like action movies said that this was a thinking man's movie, and this was extraordinary work, and this was talking about, you know, science fiction, about the future, and about computers and machines taking over. And they really liked that concept. And only after the movie came out, it was kind of clear that we need to do a sequel to that movie, that there was such a demand for the movie.
Okay. Do you think that the line should be, well, it should be so much better if you say, I will be back, then I will be back. You still believe that?
No. But when I argued with Jim Cameron about this line, how it should be said, you know, I didn't have the foggiest idea, nor did he, that this will become the most historic movie line, period. The most repeated line in movie history.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'm back. I'll be back.
So, and then the second one, of course, Hasta la Vista, Baby, which was in the second Terminator movie, which means, you know, bye-bye, baby.
Hasta la vista, baby.
In Spanish. And so that was another one that was really a lot repeated. So a lot of my movie lines get repeated. I think it's just because the way I say things, with the accent, with the German or Austrian accent, comes out a little funnier than for the Americans, and then for other people overseas. So they just repeat those lines over and over. And they come up to me all the time and say, can you repeat this line? I just did a speech just recently, a motivational speech. And then I said, are there any questions? And someone got up and says, can you say, get to the chopper?
Run! Get to the chopper!
You know, from Predator. So I'm there in the audience and I'm screaming, get to the chopper! And then they all were applauding. It was the only standing ovation I got for that line. It was very funny. You know?
So after the release of the first Terminator, it got to be a moment when you realize, okay, this is it. I finally made it.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, you know, when you're an actor, it's always hard to get a good script and to get a good job, to get a good part, to work with a good director. So it's always a struggle. Everyone struggles with those things. But all of a sudden, within 6 months period, I was offered like 10 great action movies.
Wow.
So then I did Commando right after that. Then I did Predator. And then I did Red Heat. And my career was climbing and climbing and climbing like this. And then eventually we did another Terminator movie, the sequel. And that became the highest grossing movie of the year and the most successful movie of the year, critically and financially. So then my career really took off. So it really, the Terminator franchise has been very helpful to my career and to my life and the money that I made. I think it also had an impact when I ran for governor, because there was a lot of people voting for me because they thought they're voting for the Terminator. You know, they thought that I'm going to be able to go to Sacramento, to our state capital, and to terminate the problems. And, you know, I heard that all the time when I was governor. I thought that you're the Terminator, and I thought you're going to solve the problems, you're going to terminate the problem. I said, no, I said, I only play the Terminator, but I'm a regular human being. I said, and I am very happy to be a public servant and all this. But a lot of people thought that I was the real Terminator going to Sacramento and being governor.
But during those 8 years as governor of the state of California, did you ever miss about being on the movie set?
Of course you miss that, but I mean, it's just such a great pleasure to be governor.
It's very challenging.
It's very challenging and it's very difficult, but I love big challenges, and I also love when people say it's impossible, because it's one of my rules to success is not to listen
to the naysayers.
Because all the time in my whole life I always have heard, oh, come on now, this is impossible. You can never become a star in Hollywood. You have an accent, you have a big body, you have a name that no one can pronounce. I mean, there were all kinds of excuses why people said it's impossible.
What were you passionate about when you were a young kid?
I was passionate about sports, and my father always hated it because my father wanted me to be a police officer like he was. My father was a police officer. My mother wanted me to stay home to marry a girl by the name of Heidi, and to have 5 kids and to be like the Van Trapp family in The Sound of Music or something like that.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
actually.
no, but I mean, my mother loved that, but it was not my vision. I said to my mother, I said, that's your vision, which I appreciate. I said, but mine is what you consider crazy. I said, mine is to be in America. Mine is to be in Hollywood. Mine is to be the bodybuilding champion and to be a power lifter and a weightlifter and to do great things, to get trophies and medals and to be hailed out there as being the greatest. I said, that's what I see myself. And she says, son, you're very sick in the head. So that's what they thought.
How did you know you were going to make it in Hollywood?
I didn't know. I just felt that if I can see it, I believe it, and I will achieve it. That's how I felt.
Will you ever put this extra maybe 50 pounds for a movie role? Will you ever do that?
You know, today you can just put some puffed kind of clothes on to look like you gained 50 pounds. And if I have to lose 50 pounds, I could lose 50 pounds for a movie. The great thing is when there's a specific purpose, then you can really lock into that and you can do anything.
I know you will never retire from movie business. Where do you see yourself in like 10 years, 15 years?
You know, if you really analyze the word retirement, that means you're giving up something, you're stopping something. And have you ever thought about what the point of that is? I mean, I don't know what the point of it is. Why would you give up something that you love doing? That's what we were born for, to be useful. And therefore, you got to do something. You maybe don't have the show because things change all the time. I may not be the superstar and all that stuff, but you all still can go out there and help people in some capacity, or run some foundation that helps people. You can be out there and be a environmental crusader and travel around China or around the world and talk about that subject. But you don't have to retire and say, this is the end now. I'm going to give up working and all that stuff. It's bogus, because people usually when they retire, they wipe out. Because the mission is over and the brain gives out and the body gives out. So I think we always need to challenge ourselves. And remember, there's nothing that's better for your brain than to be always thinking and to kind of challenge yourself. If it's playing chess, or if it's reading books, or if it is, you know, kind of having interesting debates. The job that you do with your show, you keep yourself really stimulated, because as I can see when I sit here with you, you've done a lot of extensive research.
I've read your book. So it's very entertaining.
So that, thank you. So that is, you know, so every time you have a guest, you have to then read about them, you have to do research about them. So that gets your brain cells working all the time. So it's a great exercise. We got to exercise, as I said, use it or lose it. If you don't use your brain, you're going to lose it. And if you don't use your body, you're going to lose it.
You're a very good motivational speaker.
Thank you.
Good luck with this movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a great time talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.